All right, time now for our weekly meeting with our insiders, Elliotte Friedman and Chris Johnston. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because we met 1 week ago and we were all pretty calm. 6 weeks to go till January 1st, that date we had circled on the calendar as a possible return date for the National Hockey League. CJ, let's start with you. It's been awfully quiet in this last 7 days. Is it time to get a little panicked if you're an NHL fan hoping for the resumption of the league?
Well, I'd never advocate panic at any point, David, but I would say that, I'm a little surprised there's not more talk about the possibility, at least, that there isn't going to be a season. It still seems like a lot of the talk is if and when, and we're waiting for this to happen. And while there's certainly a lot of time still to strike a deal, I mean, the fact that another week has gone by here with virtually no talk, at least on the relevant issues to getting this season up and running. And I think when you remove the emotion from it, and just look at what this is, potentially a season without fans takes a $5 billion industry down to what, 1.5 billion or less. I mean, I just wonder if the players aren't moving a little bit on the issues, and I understand completely. I'm not taking a side here why they're not happy and haven't been happy with the notion that they have to give back after reaching this deal if there aren't just enough owners out there who don't want to play.
I still think we're going to play, Dave. I do. I remember, and I understand that this is not something that really resonates with the younger generation, but we all remember the movie War Games, 1983, Mutually Assured Destruction. I just don't believe we're going to see it. I think they're going to figure out a way to get this done. I just think the long-term damage, if everybody else tries to play and the NHL doesn't even try, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster, and I refuse to believe that that's going to happen.
All right, Elliotte, I agree with you. I think common sense will prevail. There has to be some common ground. We need to have a season. We all understand that. But what's going to kickstart the conversation, Elliotte, to get the owners and the players back in a room talking about this so we can move along?
Well, I think the number one thing that will kickstart the season, Dave, is that we're going to reach a point where people are going to realize that we have to get a season going. And I don't know exactly when that is, but I know that one thing about the history of bargaining between the league and the players is that everything gets really serious when everybody sees there's a real deadline. And, whether or not that real deadline is January 1st or January 15th or February 1st, I think we're in a position where that's the point of time where I think everybody will get serious. Now, I do think there is an added pressure point here. One of the reasons that this situation started getting talked about in the NHL was the NBA announced that this started their season. And the NBA players are supposed to go to training camp next week. Now, we don't know what's going to happen because we're all at the mercy of COVID. But if the NBA goes to training camp next week and we still don't have a date, people are going to start saying, like, what are we doing? And, there will be the pressure of how come one league has its stuff together and one league doesn't? And I do think that's a factor.
And meanwhile, we've got NHL players playing over in Europe. We have players that are playing, but that are still based in Europe. Guys all around North America. Obviously there are some cases where players are already back in their home markets, but I do think that, at some point there has to be clarity. I mean, even NHL coaches, I texted with a few, I mean, they're having to prepare as though training camp's opening December 15th. And I suppose that's still possible, but I would suggest to you it's probably not likely given some quarantine issues, especially the Canadian teams are going to have to deal with, and the fact that we're here on November 27th and there hasn't been progress towards that deal. And so, I do think that while they've gone, David, a week here, essentially without having any meaningful negotiations or furthering the conversation around the league's proposals about, deferred salary and escrow and the like, I do think that they're going to have to pick up that conversation and see where it goes at some point here in the very near future.
David, I have a theory about training camp, okay? I think training camps are going to be shorter than we're used to. For one thing, there's no point in having exhibition games if you can't have fans at them because you can't make money off them. If you look at the return to play, the teams had one exhibition game before they played. A lot of the players are playing or skating right now. They're in good shape. They're ready to go. They're ramping up. Like, I don't think, and also it's not like you're going to have 50 or 60 players in camp. I've heard some rumblings that they're talking about limits of 35. I don't think we're going to need long training camps. And if some players have to return to, say, Canada, and they have to miss the beginning of training camp for the quarantine, they may just have to live with it. But I do think the whole thing about the 15-day training camp, I'm beginning to wonder if maybe we're talking 10 days max for training camp. And maybe some of these teams that hope to get longer time, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if they have to crush the training camps to get ready for the season, I see a situation where both the league and the players agree to that.
Listen, there's a lot of good information there, and that would make a lot of sense. But I want both your opinions here quickly. Just from the day the ink is dry on whatever the new collective bargaining agreement might look like to get this season underway, how much time would be needed before they could drop the puck and play a regular season game?
Ooh, I'm not good at math. I'm going to say at 4 weeks, maybe a little bit less. I mean, that gives you basically 2 weeks from the day it's signed to open your camp, and I'm still budgeting 2 weeks for training camp. And, not to certainly disprove what Elliotte's put out there, but I think that they can do it in 4 weeks.
Prediction based on nothing, just educated guess. Okay. They look at bringing the players in right after Christmas, and we drop the puck around January 6th to 8th.
Wow. So really quick. So you're saying
I could see a situation where training camp is 10 to 12 days, but that's just me talking, nobody has said go with that. But just like the kinds of things I'm hearing out there, I think that's possible.
Well, and based on how short the training camps were, David, for the return to play, and they were jumping into the playoffs. I mean, we're still expecting they're jumping into a 60-game season here, so there is time essentially to warm up with the season a little bit, given the unique circumstances at play.
All great points. The one thing I'll throw on there, though, is that remember 7 teams, including the Ottawa Senators, haven't played a meaningful hockey game since last March. So it's been a long time off the ice for a number of teams that would be re-engaging when the season finally does get started here. My New Year's resolution, guys, is 5 weeks from today's January 1st that we won't be talking about labor unrest. We'll be talking about NHL hockey. Let's hope I can stick to that. Thanks again to our insiders, Elliotte Friedman and Chris Johnston.